The planet was silent. Not the kind of silence born from absence, but the kind that came from pressure, as if sound itself had been buried beneath layers of frost and time. Dr. Elian Voss stood at the edge of the crater, wind tugging at his coat, and stared down at the remains of Sigrin 7, the forgotten research base swallowed by centuries of blizzards. They hadn't sent him here to discover. They sent him here to disappear. The shuttle behind him hissed its final breath as it sealed shut. He didn't look back, carrying only a datapad, a sealed rations case, and his personal recorder. Elian descended into the ice. Inside, Sigrin 7 was a grave. Hallways coated in permafrost, broken terminals blinking like dying stars. The walls whispered with groans of thermal stress. He moved carefully, breathing through a cracked rebreather. The station's geothermal tap still pulsed faintly, enough to power lights, maybe open sealed doors. Maybe. He found the primary systems console in the command room, a slow boot, low power mode. But something pinged the moment it came online. A heat anomaly, deep beneath the lab sector, hundreds of meters down. There shouldn't be anything alive down here, Elian muttered into his recorder. Still, curiosity overrode caution. Hours later, he was crawling through a vertical shaft, frost biting at his fingers even through insulated gloves. His light caught on something metallic, a vaulted door, half buried in glacial buildup, blinking a single red rune in an alien language. He paused. It wasn't Varnari script, not exactly, but it had similar curves, flowing and sharp at once. His breath caught. The Varnari hadn't been seen in 3 centuries. The war was ancient history, myths, warnings. "Who buried you here?" he whispered. He accessed the console, one translation sequence, one override command. The door responded with a hiss and a low organic moan. Beyond it lay a circular chamber glowing in blue biolight, frozen with crystalline vines. In the center, a stasis pod shaped like a blooming flower, sealed in layers of translucent ice. Suspended within, a woman. Number, not a woman. Something like one. Her skin was a deep cobalt hue, threaded with silvery veins. Her face was sharp, regal, her hair fanned like frozen smoke in zero gravity. But her eyes, even closed, seemed to carry weight, a presence pressing outward. Symbols pulsed faintly along the edges of the pod. Elian's hand hovered above the control panel. He hesitated. Then, with a slow exhale, he pressed Analyze. The pod flickered, systems surged, and then his wrist comm sparked. A surge. The ice cracked. No, no, no. He backed away, but it was too late. The chamber lit in violent white. The pod's ice shattered outward in a spiral of glittering shards. A shockwave of cold blasted through the chamber, and Elian was thrown against the wall, his breath stolen from his lungs. She awoke screaming, a sound that wasn't just sound, but pressure, vibration, meaning. Her body arched violently as the last of the containment field faded. Her eyes opened, glowing glacier blue, burning with rage. Elian gasped, trying to speak, but the air crystallized around his face. Her arms snapped toward him, and a spear of frost shot across the chamber, embedding itself in the metal inches from his head. "Stand down!" he shouted, raising both hands. She rose, fluid and inhuman. Bare feet touched the frozen floor as if gravity bent around her. Her voice followed, laced with venom. "Human!" She spat the word like acid. Elian didn't move. "You were in stasis. You've been asleep for centuries. The war is over." She stalked closer, frost trailing from her fingertips. "Lies, deception. You invaded our core worlds. You burned our skies." He coughed. "That was 300 years ago. I'm not a soldier. I'm alone." She paused, as if measuring his heartbeat. "Where are my people?" "I don't know. Records say the Varnari vanished. Extinct or exiled. No one's seen one in generations." Something flickered in her eye. Grief? No, something colder. She lifted her hand again, frost curling into a sphere of blue energy. Elian knew he was seconds from death. He whispered a word, not in standard. In Varnari, Sershan. He wasn't sure where he'd read it. An old myth, maybe. It meant unwilling bond or sacred debt. The frost stopped. Her hand trembled. "Who told you that word?" she said, voice suddenly low. "Dangerous. I read. Studied your people. I didn't come here to fight you." He swallowed hard. "My name is Elian. I came here to be forgotten. I think you were too." She looked at him for a long time. Then she turned slowly and collapsed to her knees beside the shattered pod. Ice reformed beneath her palms. The temperature in the room dropped again, but she made no move to attack. "I am Siavel, last daughter of the cryo choir, bound by silence, buried in exile." Her voice broke. barely above a whisper, "and you should not have woken me." Elian took a cautious step closer, each breath visible in the freezing air. "Maybe not," he said quietly, "but now that you're awake, maybe we can both remember what they wanted the universe to forget." Outside, the winds howled through the station's broken corridors, and beneath them, far beneath, something ancient stirred in the ice. The silence between them stretched like ice across a lake, fragile, reflective, ready to crack under weight. Elian Voss had sealed the chamber, rerouting the last reserves of power into a temporary shield. It was the only thing that separated them from the howling storms above and the creeping frost below. He sat near the auxiliary heater, cradling a flask of warmed synth coffee. Across from him, Sci-Fi remained motionless, eyes closed, fingers grazing the icy floor, like she was listening to something he couldn't hear. "You haven't spoken in hours," said Elian quietly. Her voice returned like a knife through snow. "Because you haven't said anything worth hearing," he exhaled. Fair. Silence again. Only the soft hum of the power core and the distant groan of metal warping under ancient pressure. Finally, he tried again. "Your body is still adjusting. Cryolethargy can cause disorientation, even memory gaps. I can run a neural—" "I remember everything," she snapped, eyes flashing open. "I remember your kind's ships blackening our sky. I remember fire, oceans boiling, my sisters singing their death hymns as they were atomized in orbit." Elian didn't respond immediately. There was no justification for what had happened. "And yet, but why were you here?" he asked. "This isn't Varnari Prime. This world, it's not on any official map. It's barely even alive." Sci-Fi stood, slow and graceful, as though gravity treated her differently. She walked to the edge of the chamber, where a frozen console remained buried in crystalline growth. With a wave of her hand, the ice retreated, not melted, but commanded. She pressed her palm to the screen. Symbols bloomed to life. Varnari glyphs, spiraling and glowing. A language older than Earth's continents. This planet was a key, she said. A vault, the last sanctuary of the cryo choir. My people knew the war was lost. We sealed ourselves inside the mind of winter, an ancient world engine that would keep us safe until it was time to rise again. Elian stood, heart racing. "You mean this entire planet is a machine?" "More than a machine. A sentience. It remembers, just like I do." Her voice softened briefly. "But someone betrayed us. They altered the code, shut us down, buried the choir in silence." Elian stepped closer. "Wait, altered? Are you saying humans tampered with the Varnari stasis system?" She turned slowly, her gaze piercing. "Not just humans. Your governments, your science fleets, your history speaks of our extinction. But it wasn't war that ended us. It was surgery, surgical erasure." A cold dread settled in Elian's stomach. He pulled up his datapad, syncing it to the station's archive node. After a few minutes of searching deep classified directories, he found them. Redacted mission logs, dated 304 years ago. Accessing file, Andor Sigrun 7, Vault X37. Classification, Eclipse, Black. Content, Operation White Silence. Objective, biological neutralization of hostile cryo-entities via stasis, override, and orbital concealment protocols. Status, executed. No survivors. Elian's hands trembled. "They knew. They found you, and they left you here to rot." Sci-Fi was silent. Then, in a voice barely audible, "You understand now why I should kill you?" Elian nodded slowly. "I do." He turned the datapad toward her and placed it on the floor. "If you want justice, start with this, the proof of what was done." She stared at the screen, the runes, the orders, the names, her hands balled into fists. But then, Elian did something unexpected. He knelt. He knelt before her, not in submission, but in recognition. A gesture not of surrender, but of solidarity. "I didn't come here to judge your people," he said, "but I also didn't come here to pretend my kind is innocent. Maybe I was meant to disappear here, but if I was, maybe it was to find you." Sci-Fi looked down at him, and for a long moment, the room felt still. Not cold, not tense, just still. Then the temperature changed, not rising, but centering. Her aura of frost softened. The air no longer bit at his skin. She turned away from the datapad, eyes distant. "The mind of winter. It's waking," she whispered. "My presence is its key. The activation has already begun. If I reach the throne of ice, the world engine will respond. It will not care for peace. It will remember only war." A soft tremor passed beneath them, a vibration that had nothing to do with tectonics. Elian felt it in his spine. Can it be stopped? Only if I choose to stay forgotten. Her voice was breaking now, but I was not built to surrender. Elian stepped closer, slowly. Then maybe you weren't built to surrender, but you were awakened by choice. Mine. And now you have one too. Sci-Fi turned her head, eyes meeting his. Not glowing, not sharp, but tired. Ancient. Why would you risk trusting me? Because you hesitated, Elian said. When I spoke your sacred word, when you saw the truth, that hesitation was hope. Outside, the wind screamed, and beneath their feet, the mind of winter stirred louder. The storm had stopped, not because the wind had calmed, but because the planet itself was holding its breath. Far beneath the surface, Elian and Sci-Fi stood at the threshold of a massive chamber, a cathedral carved from living ice. Pillars soared into shadow, humming with ancient power. The walls moved, subtly, like lungs inhaling frost and memory. In the center, half buried in crystalline vines, stood the throne of ice. Not a seat, but an interface, designed only for Varnari blood. Its core pulsed with eerie blue light, waiting. This is it, said Sci-Fi, her voice distant, the heart of the mind. Elian stared at the vast structure. And once you connect, it awakens? She nodded, fully, irrevocably. The choir's code will flood back. Every war memory, every cry of vengeance. The mind will finish what was paused. He stepped closer. But that's not what you want anymore. She turned sharply. You don't know what I want. Elian's voice was soft, number, but I know what you've done. He gestured to the frost forming at her feet, no longer aggressive but reactive, emotional. Her aura had changed. Days ago, she would have frozen his lungs for speaking her name. Now, she let him stand this close, share breath in the same space. She looked away. You think I'm afraid? I hope you are, he said gently. Fear means you're still deciding, and if you're still deciding, you haven't become what they made you to be. Sci-Fi stared at the throne. She took a step forward. The ice beneath her shimmered, reacting to her presence. The humming grew louder, a chorus rising from deep below. The mind of winter knew her. It remembered, and it was hungry. Flashes surged across the walls, holographic projections of fire and ruin. Varnari cities burning, orbiting human dreadnoughts unleashing waves of destruction. Her people dying. Again, she whispered, they wanted us erased. Elian stepped beside her. And you were, but not by fate, by choice. The wrong choice. But we can make a different one. She stared at the throne, then back at him. If I don't take the mind, it will decay. The last of us will be lost. There will be nothing left. Elian touched the ice. Then, let it be your legacy, not theirs. Tears formed in her eyes, freezing as they fell. You don't understand. This throne responds to instinct, rage. It will listen only to pain. Elian looked at her with quiet strength. Then, speak love louder. She trembled. Then, with a slow breath, she placed her hand on the core. The light surged. Energy raced through the cathedral. Ice twisted upward, forming spires that reflected 1,000 versions of her face. The mind spoke in pulses, glyphs appearing in the air, voices rising in unison. Command, restore, strike, obliterate. Her body rose inches from the ground, veins glowing with ancient light. Her eyes flared open. The mind demanded war, and for a moment, she almost gave it. But then, through the blinding cold, she heard something. Not the choir, not the mind. Elian. He wasn't shouting. He wasn't begging. He was simply there, still, hands open, breathing frost into warmth. He whispered, you are not your vengeance. The mind flinched. Sci-Fi's body spasmed, a surge of emotion overwhelming the programming. And then she screamed, not a cry of rage, but of release. A pulse of white light exploded from her chest, knocking the vines away. The throne cracked. The mind flickered. The war pulse halted. She fell to her knees, breathing hard, body steaming. The air was silent again. The mind of winter had gone quiet for good. Hours later, they stood on the observation deck of an orbital relay, watching the ice planet recede into the stars. The old satellite hadn't moved in centuries, a relic of forgotten wars. Sci-Fi stared through the viewport. Her voice was quieter now, almost human. It's strange, she said, to have lived 300 years for vengeance and feel peace in the presence of a stranger. Elian smiled faintly. Maybe peace isn't found. Maybe it's chosen. She looked at him. Then I choose to remember differently. The stars shimmered outside, cold, distant, eternal. But within that ship, two beings who once belonged to opposite ends of extinction breathed together. And in the silence that followed, for the first time in centuries, the ice did not weep.